Hello children, I welcome you all for the science session. Uh, Before we continue our chapter reproduction in animals, let's have a quick recap of this chapter, whatever we have learned in the last session. In the last session, we have learned about fertilization. What is fertilization? Fertilization is a first step in the process of reproduction in which fusion of sperm and an ovum takes place. When sperm comes in contact with an egg, one of the sperm may fuse with the egg, and such fusion of egg and sperm is called as fertilization. And uh, that is, firstly, reproduction in animals begins when the sperm fuses with an ovum. This process, what we call it as fertilization. During fertilization, the nuclei of the sperm and egg combine together to form a single nucleus. As a result, zygote is formed. That is, fertilization results in the formation of zygote. Since zygote is formed with the fusion of male and female gametes, the new individual possesses both the characteristics, that is characteristics of both the parents. Then we have learned two types of fertilization: internal fertilization and external fertilization. What is internal fertilization? Fertilization which takes place inside the body of the female is called as internal fertilization. Example, human being, dogs, cows, birds, etc. External fertilization is fertilization which takes place outside the body of the female is called as external fertilization. It is very common in aquatic animals like fish, starfish, amphibians, like frog, toad, etc. Then about external fertilization, that is how it takes place in aquatic animals. That is during spring or rainy season, frogs and toads move to ponds and slow flowing streams. When the male and female come together in water, the female lays hundreds of eggs, and here, unlike hen's egg, the frog's egg is not covered by a hard shell. It is very delicate, and this frog's eggs, as it is very delicate, it is coated with a layer of jelly, by which eggs are held together and provide protection to the eggs. Then after the eggs are laid, the male deposits sperms over them. Then each sperm swims randomly in water with the help of its long tail. Then sperms come in contact with the eggs, which results in the fertilization. That is, fertilization leads to the formation of zygote. Then why do fishes and frogs, they lay hundreds of eggs, but whereas hen lays only one egg at a time? The reason behind is, though these animals lay hundreds of eggs and they release millions of sperms, all the eggs do not get fertilized and develop into new individuals. This is because the eggs and sperms get exposed to water movement, wind and rainfall, as well as some predatory animals. They may feed on the eggs. Thus, production of large number of eggs and sperms is necessary so that fertilization of at least few of them may take place. Then we have learned about differences between internal fertilization and external fertilization. In the fertilization process which takes place inside the female body is called internal fertilization. Fertilization process that takes place outside the female body is called as external fertilization. In internal fertilization, less number of eggs are produced by females as there are high chances of survival of the offspring. Whereas in external fertilization, large number of eggs are produced by females because the chances of survival of the offsprings are very, very low. Example of for internal fertilization: cows, human beings, dog, hens, etc. External fertilization: aquatic animals like fishes, amphibians like frogs, etc. Now, let's continue our chapter. Have you heard of test tube babies? Yes, in some, now let's discuss about test tube babies. In some women, oviducts are blocked. So these women are unable to bear babies because as the oviducts are blocked, the sperms cannot reach the egg for fertilization. So in oviduct only fertilization takes place. So if the oviduct is blocked, then the sperm cannot reach the egg for fertilization. So in such cases, doctors collect freshly released eggs and sperms and keep them together for a few hours for IVF, that is in vitro fertilization. What do you mean by in vitro fertilization? Vitro means outside the body. Fertilization takes place outside the body. Then in case fertilization occurs, then the zygote is allowed to develop for about a week, and then the developed zygote, again it is placed in the mother's uterus. Then complete development takes place in the uterus and the baby is born like any other baby. So these babies born through these techniques are called as test tube babies. Got children? So we have learned about IVF or in vitro fertilization. So the fertilization of an egg that takes place outside the body in the test tube or any other tiny apparatus is known as in vitro fertilization. And test tube babies, in this technique, freshly released eggs and sperms are put together for few hours, and in case fertilization occurs, the zygote is allowed to develop for about a week and then placed in uterus of the mother. Then complete development takes place in the uterus and the baby is born like any other normal baby. So this term test tube baby, but don't it is misleading because babies cannot grow in the test tubes, isn't it? So as the name indicates, test tube babies means babies cannot, that is not grown in the test tube, because here due to some abnormality of oviduct of in some women, that is oviduct is blocked, fertilization cannot take place. So freshly released eggs and sperms are collected and put together in vitro, that is for outside in the test tube for few hours. Then if fertilization occurs, then zygote is allowed to develop. Then after fully developed, it again placed in the uterus of the mother. So this type of technique is called as test tube babies. Then now next step in reproduction after the zygote is formed. Then next step is development of embryo. That is, we know that fertilization results in the formation of zygote and it begins to develop into an embryo. See here in figure this A1, first one, zygote is formed in the oviduct. Got that? Then the zygote, it divides repeatedly and give rise to balls of cells. See, after zygote is developed, it undergoes repeated cell division and forms the balls of cells. Then the cells begin to form groups, that is cells group together and it forms and develop into different tissues. Then tissues groups together into form an organs of the body. Then organs group together to form organ system. So it goes on. So this developing structure, what we call that as embryo. Then the embryo gets developed, get embedded. Embedded means it just fixed in the wall of the uterus for further development. See here, this is the wall of the uterus. It get fixed and develops, further development takes place. Got children? So zygote, our fertilization results in the formation of zygote. Zygote, once if it is a single cell, after it undergoes repeated cell division, ball of cells are formed. Then the cells begin to group together to form tissues, then tissues group together to and develop into organs of the body. This developing structure is termed as embryo. Then embryo get embedded in the wall of the uterus for further development. And the embryo, then here you can see that embryo continuously continues to develop in the uterus. Then it gradually develops into different body parts such as hand, hair, legs, head, eyes, ears, etc. The stage of the embryo in which all the parts, body parts can be identified, then we call them as what is that, fetus. When the development of the fetus is completed, then the mother gives birth to the baby. Got children? What is the difference between embryo and fetus? What is fetus? Once the embryo is fully developed, all the body parts, when it is fully developed, then we call that as fetus. Then once the fetus growth is fully completed, then the mother gives birth to the baby. So next, the same way, internal fertilization takes place in hens also. But here, hens, they directly do not give birth to young ones like human beings and cows, isn't it? Now, what happens? Soon after the fertilization, the zygote divides repeatedly and travels down to the oviduct. Then once if they reaches the oviduct, they form protective layers around it. The hard shell, what we call what we see in the hen's egg is a protective layer. Then after the hard shell is formed around the developing embryo, then the hen finally lays egg. Then embryo takes about 3 weeks to develop into chick. So here the complete development of embryo takes place outside the female body. Here, but fertilization takes place inside, internal fertilization, but development, it takes place outside the body. So here you might have seen that hen sitting on the eggs to provide sufficient warmth, isn't it? And once the development of the chick takes place inside the eggshell, and then it burst because of the warmth given by the hen, it hatched out of the eggshell. This way, young one is hence give birth to young ones by hatching out. So here got the difference between internal fertilization, but internal development takes place in human being, cows, dogs, etc. But in case of hen, fertilization takes place internally. It is internal fertilization, but development takes place outside. So we call that as it is external development. Now, if you see that in animals which undergo now coming back to external fertilization, that is the fertilization takes place outside the female body. Here, the embryo continuously grow outside the body. After the embryo develop, then the eggs hatch out, isn't it? Then the same way it occurs in frogs, egg, fish eggs, etc. That is why we can see that numerous tadpole, it's swimming in ponds and streams. So this way, what is it? If you see that animals reproduction, we can classify animals into viviparous animals and oviparous animals. That is, some animals directly give birth to young ones, while some animals they lay egg. After later it develops into young ones. So the animals which directly give birth to young ones are called as viviparous animals, and animals which lay eggs and then young one hatch out from the eggs are called as oviparous animals. So the following activity will help us to understand better and differentiate between viviparous and oviparous animals. Now what we have to do is, we have to just observe the collection of eggs in the following organisms like frog, lizards. You can see here eggs of frog, lizard, butterfly or moth, or what this is hen's eggs, eggs of crow, etc. And if you if you go through these examples, were you able to collect eggs? If you are told to collect all the eggs, have you able to collect all of them? No, only the eggs of few animals are easy to collect, because only few animals, few females, they lay egg out. That is, fertilization takes place outside the body, isn't it? So these animals from which you have collected eggs are examples of oviparous animals. But some uh, animals like dog, cow, cat, etc., we cannot collect the eggs because they do not lay eggs. Here, these animals, the female directly give birth to young ones. So these animals are called as viviparous animals. Okay, children. So till now, we have in the session we have learnt about fertilization, that is fusion of male and female gamete. Male gamete we call that as sperm, and female gamete we call that as ovum or egg, is called as fertilization. Fertilization results in the formation of zygote. And then we have learned about two types of fertilization: internal fertilization and external fertilization. Then after fertilization, zygote develops. Once after that, zygote divides repeatedly and gives rise to an embryo. Then an embryo gets embedded in the wall of the uterus for further development. The stage of an embryo in which all the body parts are fully developed is called as fetus. And then we have learnt about two types of this reproduction, that is animals, viviparous animals and oviparous animals. Animals like human beings, cows and dogs, which directly give birth to young ones, are called viviparous animals. Animals like hen, this which hatch out, that is lay eggs, they are called as oviparous animals. Okay, children, that's all for this session. Thank you.